AEW Collision last night was at the Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta. Calgary was alive last night. I even spotted David Benoit sitting right there in the front row watching the show. Ian Riccaboni and Nigel McGuinness were on the call. Kevin Kelly is in Japan for the G1 Climax. And I thought Riccaboni did a tremendous job. I think Ian is a great fill-in for Kevin Kelly. Frankly, I wouldn't even mind him splitting time on the show with Kevin when Kevin comes back. I think Ian did a great job, great enthusiasm. The only thing is, neither one of them can pronounce Andrade's name correctly for some reason. They both mispronounce his name. It's Andrade El Idolo. I don't know what is so hard about that, but apparently it's a difficult name for some people. But this was all about FTR defending their AEW World Tag Team titles against Bullet Club Gold. Jay White and Juice Robinson, best 2 out of 3 falls after Bullet Club Gold beat FTR the week before to earn the right to challenge for the titles. This was an instant classic. Almost went the full Broadway. The worst thing I can say about it is that it got off to a very slow start. A lot of stalling in the opening fall. But that's what tipped me off that they were going a very long time. It's like a classic Okada match. You can tell when they're going 40 minutes. Yeah, just based on the early pacing of the match. Here, they went 58 minutes. It was 20 minutes before Jay and Juice picked up the first fall. I could use a gin and juice right now, and it's only, it's almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was another 20 minutes before FTR tied it up and took us into the third and decisive fall, and yet another 18 minutes before it was all said and done. They had the crowd with them every step of the way. It's like doing an Iron Man match. Those are tougher because you're telling people in advance the match is going the full 60. So they might check out for a while until you get like the last 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Here, you didn't know when the match was going to end. Right? They would bring them up, then they'd bring them down, they'd bring them up, they'd bring them down again. They had them in the palm of their hands. You didn't know when this match was going to end until it got past, I'd say, maybe the 40-minute mark. And then I figured, okay, they're either going to go to a time limit draw or they're going to go near 60, and that's what they did. We had both members of FTR applying dueling sharpshooters to White and Robinson in Calgary, so of course the fans went nuts for it. White and Robinson, they're on the mat, they're looking at each other, they're trying to stop the other, or whoever the legal man is, from tapping out. FTR, eventually, they released the hold. They released each of their holds out of exhaustion. And I liked how the announcers explained to us that being seated, crouched down in that position for so long was hell on their knees, and so they had to let go. And of course, Harwood is always out there with the leg brace on, so you can believe that, okay, maybe his knee went out on him. But then Harwood, he pulls down his knee pad, and he locks Juice in another sharpshooter, and they explain that by pulling the knee pad down, it allowed Dax to crouch down even more, even deeper, and apply more pressure. Psychology. And finally, Juice tapped out to hand the win to FTR. After the match, FTR extended their hands out of respect. Jay White spat on the ground and they left. Apparently somebody didn't get the memo about the no spitting. Maybe it's just no spitting on other wrestlers. Maybe spitting on the ground is acceptable. Not only one of the greatest tag team matches that I have ever seen, but one of the greatest matches in AEW history. They somehow topped their match from the week before. If we get one more from them, this could rival the trilogy that FTR had last year with the Briscoes. They are technically 1 win apiece now. FTR and DIY, remember they had that classic 2 out of 3 falls match in NXT that also took place in Canada. That one was in Toronto. And that is legitimately one of the greatest matches in WWE history. And they even used a similar spot in that match where Dax and Cash, they were locked in simultaneous submissions. They were trying to make sure the other one, they clasped their hands together. They're trying to make sure their partner doesn't tap out. And then they end up tapping at the same time. I only wish Johnny Gargano would have sold the damn leg more in that match. That was my one pet peeve about that match. Sell the damn leg. He didn't do enough of that. But that's a minor critique. That was a fantastic match. Last night was a fantastic match. FTR does it again. They are the greatest tag team in the world today. You say to me, who do you think is the best tag team in the world today at this moment? It's Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. And it's matches like this why Collision has been the best weekly wrestling show in its first month on the air, because we're a month in now. Right? Whatever that Saturday, I think it was June 17th, that was the very first episode of Collision. It's July 16th. It's been a month. And it has so far consistently, I think quality-wise, certainly from an in-ring standpoint, been the best weekly wrestling show from any promotion. We also had Willow Nightingale against Ruby Soho in the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. I want to give a shout out here to Rampage on Friday. The only reason I watched part of Rampage on Friday was to see Willow and Athena, because that match was preempted from last week. Willow was not medically cleared. She got back from Japan in her match with Julia. She had some sort of minor injury issue. She wasn't cleared. So instead of putting the match on Dynamite on Wednesday, which is live in front of a bigger audience, these two women deserve to have a bigger audience. They stuck it on Rampage on the taped show on Friday, which apparently did not do... It might have been the worst number that Rampage has ever gotten. I guess the final number is not in yet. But those two women, it's too bad they didn't have a bigger platform. I don't hear anybody talking about the match they had on Friday. I thought it was an excellent match. And Willow got the win there, so the very next night, she wrestled Ruby Soho. Now, Ruby fell short in the finals in last year's Owen Hart tournament. She lost to Britt Baker. Well, she fell short again here this year, because Willow Nightingale picks up the win with the Dr. Bomb. She wins on the women's side. That brought us to the men's Owen Hart final between CM Punk and Ricky Starks. You had CM Punk out there. He was sporting the pink and black Bret Hart shorts. He got the John Cena treatment anyway, even paying homage to Bret Hart. He got plenty of boos. And there was also a very noticeable sign in the crowd with a CM Punk crying man-child Phil was on the sign right there on the hard camera. But it was a hot crowd for what was a good match. It was not a great match, but I thought it was a good match. For the finish, we got some dueling roll-ups that ended with Ricky Starks grabbing the middle rope for leverage, and he got the shock pin on CM Punk to win the tournament. Now, unfortunately, Ricky held onto the rope for a little too long, a couple seconds longer than he should have, because when Bryce Remsburg counted the 3, as soon as Bryce Remsburg looked up, what did he see? Plain as day in his line of vision? He saw Ricky Starks still holding onto that top rope, which made him look stupid for not restarting the match, but I can't even blame the referee in that instance. All he did was look up, right? That's really on Ricky more than the referee. He should have just immediately let go of the rope. But Ricky winning was the right call. Ricky going heel, if that's what Tony Khan is doing, could be interesting if he ends up in Bullet Club Gold. And I know it doesn't seem to make sense. Why would he join them? He's been feuding with them for months. But I think that would be a good spot for him to be in. I mean, look, it sure seemed to me like the start of a heel turn after the match. When the show went off the air, they had a third hour last night for that Battle of the Belts crap. So they immediately picked up from the very end of the Punk and Starks match. I know some people probably turned it off at the end of Collision. But they showed Ricky leaving the ring, and who should come out on stage with the Owen Hart Trophy in hand but Jushin Thunder Liger. He came out on stage in full getup to present the trophy to Ricky Starks. Ricky never even acknowledged him. He snatched the trophy out of Liger's hand and never acknowledged him, never looked at him, and just took the trophy, big smile on his face, and he went to the back. He disrespected Jushin Thunder Liger. If that doesn't scream heel, I don't know what does. Very Owen Hart-esque. Even the way he won the match. But the way that, if you think back to the way Owen stole those Slammy Awards, I mean, at least Ricky here, he did win the cup. He didn't steal it. But there was something about the way he was acting there and the way he snatched that trophy away. It was something that Owen would do. Very Owen Hart-esque. But they flew Liger in for this show because he had history with Owen. Liger went on excursion from New Japan to Stampede Wrestling back in the day, and he teamed up with Owen. When Liger went back to Japan, Owen went with him. And they ended up working a bunch of matches against each other. So Liger flew all the way from Japan. He got all dressed up in his outfit for what ended up being a 15-second cameo. That was all we got from Jushin Thunder Liger. But now the question is, what happens with Punk and Starks? Because you got to imagine that we're going to get the promo from Punk on TV next week talking about the way that Starks won the tournament. Now, is he going to give Ricky his props for doing something that he would have done back in the day, and or showing, how smart he could be? Hey, I got to tip my hat to you. You did what you had to do to win. Or is Punk going to complain and said, you know what, Ricky, you let me down. You let me down the way that you won. And maybe it leads to a feud between the two of them. Does Ricky end up joining Bullet Club Gold? And eventually we get a feud between CM Punk and Switchblade Jay White, which we should absolutely get at some point. That could be the longer term play here, rather. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how they're going to play this whole Ricky Starks thing, but it certainly came off like the start of a heel turn or some kind of an attitude shift for him. Martha Hart did come out to give a speech and present the Owen Hart title belts to the winners on the Battle of the Belts episode that followed. And again, that episode of Battle of the Belts, nothing special. It was the very definition of we are obligated to the network to do these specials 4 times a year, so let's just get this over with. Let's just get this out of the way. We did not even get to see the finish live of the Toni Storm title match with Taya Valkyrie because the feed went dead in the middle of their match. Apparently, there were some bad storms in the area. And there's a joke in there somewhere about storms killing the feed during a Toni Storm match. I didn't know what was going on when they started replaying the Julia Hart match from last week's Collision. Then I figured out, okay, this might be a Beware of Dog, in your house Beware of Dog situation all over again from 1996. But when they finally restored the feed, which was a few minutes, I mean, it wasn't that long, they did replay the finish. Toni did retain her title over Taya Valkyrie.